Aloha and welcome to Truth in Movies. I'm JayDreamerZ, and today we're going to be breaking down, decoding the movie Spaceballs. And I'm pretty excited. This is going to be a fun-filled adventure, lots of good times, and lots to learn about as well. Let me just scooch this over a bit here. There we go. All right, sweet. Who likes this movie? Who's never seen the movie? One of my favorites. Makes me laugh every time. So we're going to break down the truth in movies in the movie Spaceballs. And I just wanted to sort of give myself a little shout out. Today happens to be my channel's 9th birthday. So 9 years. Thank you all. I don't know how many people have been with me all 9 years, or, however far you've been with me on this journey. It's an honor. It's an honor to be here with everyone and to do what I love for a living and have all of your support. So thank you all very much. Without any further ado, we're going to talk about and break down the movie Spaceballs. You ready for this? All right, here we go. Once upon a time warp. Now, pay attention. Anytime that the movies say and start off, or even stories, once upon a time, that's their way of saying this happened. You know what I mean? It might be cartoonified, it might be fantastic, but they're taking ancient truths, or even prophecy sometimes, and they're sharing those truths with us. It's a retelling of an old story that we've forgotten. So what we're going to do is put on our They Live sunglasses, and we're going to take a look at this movie and take a look at some of the symbolism. It starts off, in a galaxy very, 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 very far away, there lived a ruthless race of beings known as Spaceballs. That's my dark helmet. All right, so now, in a galaxy very, very, very far away, actually, this is in our world. So these are the types of things that happen to us. These are our stories reflected back to us. Goes on to say, Chapter 11. The evil leaders of planet Spaceball, having foolishly squandered their precious atmosphere, have devised a secret plan to take every breath away from their peace-loving neighbor, planet Druidia. So, the Spaceballs, we're going to talk more about who they represent and who they really are. They want to take the oxygen away from the planet, which this planet Druidia represents Earth. It represents our world. And we're going to see some more connections as to ancient history, especially esoteric history that's not really taught in mainstream academics. Now we start off, Spaceball 1. The ship flies past and keeps flying past. It just keeps on going. And then I want you to check this part out right here. It says, we break for nobody, which is, it's a joke and that's funny. They don't stop for anyone. However, if you look at this movie as seeing an ancient story about survivors of an apocalyptic event, which is what the movie's about, which is us surviving the apocalyptic event, we've talked about this word nobody many times here on my channel. We break for nobody, not for no one at all, but they stop for survivors is really sort of the esoteric meaning, because nobody comes from the word Nemo. And if you look up the etymology of Nemo, they'll say it means no homo, or ni homo, which is short for homunculus or humanoid, etc., which means no person or no human. However, I believe that there's a better etymological root to that, which is nem, N-E-M, and then O. N-E-M, if you take a look at that, actually means assign, allot, or take. It's your take after what is left over. It's what you get when all the rest has been taken. So it's the leftovers. So those of the leftovers are the Nemo, aka the survivors, or the chosen ones, or the people who, were victorious over the apocalypse. That's who they stop for. Now we start off, we go inside of Spaceball 1, and they say, Colonel Sanders. And he looks over. Now, obviously, Colonel Sanders is a reference to the chicken guy, right? Who I don't think was really even a colonel of anything. But it's a chicken reference. Now, speaking of survivors and the Nemo and those left over after the apocalypse, the chicken reference is also a reference to this. Sometimes it's a reference to time travelers in the movie For example, Back to the Future, which we covered 1, 2, and 3 of that. But I'll tell you why. Why do they put the chicken? There's certain things that they put in almost every one of these movies I've ever broken down, even if I don't include it in the breakdown. Coffee, the obligatory coffee that, you know, it's not a specific coffee. It's not a brand of coffee, typically. Milk, it's not a specific brand of milk. They just really put coffee and milk in our face, but chicken too, right? And sometimes chocolate, but it's the word chicken. It's where it comes from, right? The chickens, the scaredy cats, etc., are the ones who are seen running away from their nations, and they run to Mount Meru. They run to the light of the world. The wise men of the world go to the light whenever they, when the world goes dark. They flock towards the light. Or they leave. Every other apocalyptic cycle, they leave that garden paradise. They have to. So they're forced out of the garden of paradise, and they're seen as running away. Instead of going down into the earth, they go out to the southern lands, right? So they're called the chickens, basically. But it's also the sound, the ka or khe, right? Remember we talked about this letter in modern Hebrew script. It kind of looks like this. In the Paleo and the Phoenician, it looks like this. It's the letter chet. And this is the root of chicken. It's 2 chets in a row, khe, or sometimes kaka, like Lake Titicaca. This is what that is actually from. It's Lake Tet, which is the island in the middle, and then chaka, which is a boundary. Well, I'll tell you what it means here, but it's the number 8. So 2 chet sounds, kaka, cha-cha, etc., is 88. When you're actually speaking 88 out loud. That's what that is. And they're outdoor boundary markers. This one says a fence or a ladder, which is also appropriate. A fence is an outdoor boundary, and a ladder is something you can climb up to get up higher, right? Both of these are appropriate given what they actually were, which were the anode and cathode beams on either side of this garden paradise that shot up into the skies as the pillars of Hercules. Here it is again in a more of a modern Hebrew script, chet, or you can say chet if you can't do that guttural sound, right? And it's kind of like bak, when you say bak, like in the back of your throat, or challah, like challah bread, not like challah, like what's up, but it's cha, way back in the back of the throat, cha, and that's the chicken, or the cha-on, those of the 2 boundaries, or those from between the 2 boundaries, those 2 boundaries being, I believe, the pillars of Hercules, which were those 2 beams that shot up out of the earth whenever we go through that apocalyptic cycle and the energy reverses and shoots up terrestrially. Energy shoots up out of the volcanoes of the world and the cave systems of our world. These are the largest, tallest beams are seen at the North Pole. Now, if you take a look, they always write this on the pillars of Hercules. You see how it says plus ultra. That V is actually like a U sound. So it's plus ultra, which means more beyond. Really strange, because over time they started to write ne plus ultra, which meant nothing more beyond. So which one is it? Is it plus ultra, which means there's more land over here? Or is it ne plus ultra, right? They started to write it in different ways. So you'll have this symbolism of these 2 pillars, these 2 beams, where the survivors went to and flocked to, and also others that floated down from the sky, which are the Anunnaki, the aliens, the gods, the fallen angels, the Nephilim, etc., and so on and so forth, that land on that mountain, that holy mountain, the mountain that's directly under the actual physical real moon, which we'll talk about too in a minute. This is also where we get the dollar sign. So you'll have the 2 pillars of Hercules as energetic beams of light that shoot up, right? Anode and cathode. But then you also have electricity that bounces back and forth in electrical arcs between the 2 of them. This is Jacob's ladder, right? And it gives us the money sign because this was the spot, the central place where people came to trade, right? It's right there in the middle of the world between Russia, America, Canada, all these places on the northern hemisphere at the very least. And this is where people would start off, especially after the apocalypse that brought the oceans, right? They would trade on the oceans, and they would sail out to other places, and that's how they would, that's how they would make a living or whatnot. Now we meet the first character, Dark Helmet. Kind of like a Darth Vader, right? Which we did break down Star Wars too, but this movie's entirely different, even though it's similar. So he comes in, he's like, and he starts choking and stuff. His dark helmet symbolically represents the dome of our world, right? Our world is a dark city, which we also broke down, symbolically speaking, because we have a covering over it. In the old world, it was called the firmament, right? I just like to call it the dome. It's the ceiling of our world. That's why we have space. The space is the space between two physical objects, right? So the ground is down here underneath us, so there must be, it stands to reason, a physical object above us to give us space, right? Not just infinite space, because that doesn't really meet the definition. Space is between two physical objects, right? All right, so then he starts to choke. So he's running out of oxygen. He says, I can't breathe in this thing, right? So running out of air, running out of oxygen specifically is a theme throughout this movie, and it's a theme that we have broken down in Total Recall and, you know, a few different other movies. I haven't seen the new Marvel's movie, but I heard that that's in that too. The depressurization of our atmosphere. So he has to open up his dome in order to get oxygen and to breathe or whatever. We're running out. We're using up the elements that are in this world, and the pressure is building and building. But thankfully, Mother Nature renews our oxygen supply. Now, here's the obligatory coffee, Mr. Coffee and Mr. Radar. So they go in front of Mr. Coffee and they want you to drink coffee. Okay, and I drink coffee, but I'm not proud of it. I'm not a person that's like a big coffee lover, and I'm like, oh my God, donate so I can buy 5,000 pounds of coffee, or, you know, I hate coffee. It's disgusting. I don't like it. You got to add stuff to it. If you like it, totally fine. But, you know, unfortunately, I got hooked on it, and it helps me, you know, to stay awake sometimes. But I'm not a fan. And I don't feel like it's a good substance. But anyways, so they always show you coffee, and they want you to drink coffee. And then they put Druidia. So this is the planet that has all of the oxygen that the Spaceballs want to steal. So they show you Druidia, and it has this shield around it, right? Now they're showing it to you from a modern perspective. They have to, because the movie, in my opinion, is making fun of modern cosmology throughout the entire course of the movie. And that's where we'll wrap things up today later in, you know, towards the end of this presentation. But they show you this shield around it, which represents the dome of our world, or the covering of our world. That's how they keep their oxygen in. That's how we keep our oxygen in. Otherwise, space would just suck it all out, right? And he says, there it is, planet Druidia. Let's take a look at Druid, Druidia. Let's break that down and check out the etymology of Druidia. Druidia. All right, so if we take a look at the word druid, right? It talks about, you know, what druids were, what druids are as a people, etc. But down here it says it's from the Proto-Indo-European root word deru, which meant tree, right? This word tree is connected to a great many words in our language, in English at the very least, and other languages too. So druid comes from deru and then weed, which means to see. Weed means to see. Right? Or vid, you could say it in different ways, but deruvid, or druid, meant to see the tree, or those of the tree who can see, or have a different sense, or a different sight, a different way of seeing, right? Seers of the tree, you could say, were the druids. People who had a sort of magical insight. So that's what that means. Now, the ia at the end, druid ia. You'll notice that most of our countries around the world, many of them, have this suffix. They have this ending, ia, at the end. And I've never heard anyone give a satisfactory explanation of why. They just say, oh, it just means like land. Does it? Is that exactly what it means? Is that exactly where that comes from and stems from? Does it mean land? Does it mean place? No, it doesn't. Let me show you what it means. By the way, there's many countries. There's like over 40 different countries that end in IA, and there's states and all kinds of stuff too. It comes from this. It comes from this particular entity / god of ancient, you know, Sumeria, Babylon area. And his name was Enki, or the Lord of the Earth, Onki. And his other name was Ya, spelled EA, right? Now, over time, they changed the letters around, and it's now IA, and they put that at the end of a place. I'll tell you why. Take a look at Ya. Take a look at this this god, which I believe represents energy, not like an actual physical alien that came down or whatever, although I do believe that there were actual physical aliens that came down. and we'll talk about those too. So this is Ya right here. Notice how they have what seems to be water going from either side up into this being, right? That is because this being represents the blue beam, basically. Okay, so this is the blue beam that shoots up out of Mount Meru. And we have the electrical arc on either side, or plasma, and it's also water or liquid that comes down as a byproduct from that strong electrical charge shooting up through our atmosphere and interacting with the atmosphere, right? Especially like the humidity that exists in the atmosphere, and even more especially during the time whenever this beam is up, we have what's known as a vapor canopy around our entire world. Because of the depressurization of our atmosphere, it creates mist and fog the world across. So all of this energy or electricity blasts right through all of that mist and fog, and then it comes down in energetic particles, or this liquid substance or whatever, which was referred to as manna. Typically, there's many names for it, ambrosia and manna and other things too. But it was energy, and people could drink it, and people could dry it out and eat it. And this is where that comes from. So he represents the pillars that shoot up out of the earth, terrestrial energy that shoots up out of the earth. Now, take a look down here. This is an actual older stela of him, and you can see that there's these poles. It looks like these other gods are like holding these poles or whatnot, but this is all symbolic and cartoonified. These poles are the actual gods. These poles, and you can see it looks like there's water between these, right? There's a pole here. I mean, it looks like there's 4, and in reality there may be 4. There's many different ones at the North Pole. But there's fluid on either side. This is plasma in the anode and cathode on either side, shooting up on either side of this being, this cosmic being, right? So these are the countries that end in IA, marked in red over here. These ones just end in land, which obviously means land. This one's Y, there's not too many of those. And then Stan, or Stan. I'll tell you what that means too. Why do they put Stan? So I looked up Stan, and it says, in some senses, regarding Stan as a suffix, such as upright pole, also means and implies upright pole, like a stand. Whenever you stand things up or whatever, it's because you put poles underneath them and they stand up, right? And it seems to be influenced by, if they are not from the word stand. Boom. And underneath the air shield, 10,000 years of fresh air. So this is all about these alien beings that have some sort of problem with their own atmosphere. So they have come to Earth, or Druidia, in order to borrow ours, right? In order to continue living and breathing, etc. That's because they went through their own depressurization as well. These are fractalverse travelers, space travelers, etc. He says, we must get through that air shield. And then they ask you, everybody got that? And I mean, he breaks the fourth wall, so to speak, almost like it's a joke, like, oh, we're recording a movie, etc. But there's a deeper level to it, which is they're actually documenting your esoteric and ancient history, and he stops to look right at you to ask you, are you paying attention to what's being shared here, right? Now we go to planet Druidia, and take a look at Druidia, right? And you can tell during which time they're living, right? Whenever you have a time during those beams shooting up into the air, the atmosphere is electrically charged and amplified. So the architecture follows suit. You have lots of points and stuff to keep the electricity away from the buildings where people live, so that those cosmic thunderbolts don't come down and destroy people or petrify things or whatnot, right? This one right here is actually where the king lives. This is a castle over here. Lots of fountains, fountain symbolism, which are the fountains of the deep erupting, the plasma erupting up out of the ground in the form of ionized oxygen, which then smashes high up into the atmosphere into the ionized hydrogen that is coming down from the plasmasphere, and it creates water, right? So it rains down afterwards. Thankfully for us, we've already gone through the deluge. We've already gone through the tribulation and the apocalypse by water. Next up is fire. Now, we go to this sort of a Druidian church where the princess is about to get married, right? Take a look at the symbol on the church, the 8-pointed star. It's also known as the Helm of Awe, the Chaos Star, many names for this particular image and glyph. It says the first intergalactic temple of the Druids. The Druids are akin to the Elven race too, and this is also the symbol that is used in Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, as it's depicted on the movies and stuff, for the elves. The 8-pointed star is all over the place because this is what people saw up in the sky, the depressurization point, right? Those lines of light that come up out. This is Medusa's snakes. This is the face of Medusa, actually, at the very top of the world. And those snakes, those plasma snakes, or fiery, wonderful serpents, come down out of that depressurization point above the Squatterman glyph, or the beam that shoots up and creates this toroidal field in the sky that people see and wonder at. And then they draw this all over the place right here. Just some different examples from one of my videos in my Plasma Apocalypse series that I've drawn. Imagine you were standing directly underneath it. This is an idea of what it would look like if you were to look straight up. This is exactly at the North Pole, and it's been drawn and represented and symbolized in many different forms, representing many different gods and characters of the world play, of the world stage throughout time, by different cultures and different perspectives, and people have different experiences. So when they retell this story, there's lots of similarities, and we can use comparative mythology to reverse engineer those similarities and those stories to see what they have in common, to see what, to get a bit closer to the truth, right? These 8-pointed star doesn't always have 8 points either, but oftentimes they have drawn it with 8. When it has 4, basically that can definitely be a reflection of the land below it with those 4 rivers. So here you have like an example in petroglyph form. There's many of these. I only wanted to show one just to save us some time. And then it says the royal wedding of Princess Vespa to Prince Valium. So let's check that out. Let's check out Vespa first. Now, Vespa is directly related to the word Vesper. If you take a look at that, you can see it's Vesper. And it says the evening star, the evening, or west. Vesper is directly related to the word west. Now, in the old world, remember, west was down, not left, not right, not horizontal in any fashion. It was down into the earth. That was the old west. That was the western part of our world. And east, which I'm actually going to talk to you about east here in just a minute when we talk about Lone Star, east was up. So west was down and east was up. Princess Vespa represents the evening star, the western part of the world, down in the middle and the center of the earth. Also, it's related to Vesp. Vespa means wasp, actually, too. So this is like your bee symbolism, right? The Masons like to use a lot of this bee symbolism. Plus, she's sort of feisty like a wasp in the movie. Also related to will of the wisp. Vesp means wisp. It's the same exact word. A wisp is a bunch of straw or something that people light on fire to make a torch. So here we have more light symbolism or illumination symbolism. This is the torch that they don't want ever to go out, the eternal torch. That's why they have the symbolism of keeping this torch lit. Because while that torch is lit, the world has abundance, the world has health and prosperity, etc. But when that torch goes out, when that light retracts and we go through the world charges that light and we go through another apocalyptic cycle as we are in now, the world is depleted of energy, bringing on the night. Even though we have a focal point to wake us up every once in a while, spinning around above our heads, it's nighttime in the grand scheme of things. When the lights come on, the terrestrial beams light up this world, people don't go to sleep. They're energetically charged all the time. It's time to be awake. It's daytime. That's the day. We live in the night right now. She has a robot sidekick, and her robot sidekick's name is Dot Matrix. Dot is a circle, basically. It's a point or a circle. And then matrix means mother, and more specifically implies the womb, right? So a circle that gives birth. There's 2 different circles that give birth in this world. One is the opening that goes down into the world, which is the top of the plasma volcano, or Rupus Nigra. You can go down into the world. That gives birth to the light of the world. Then we have the circle or the dot that's in the sky, which is the depressurization point, which is the all-seeing eye. The Aegis, which is, I'm going to pronounce it Aegis because I believe that's the correct pronunciation. The egg, the cosmic egg, the all-seeing eye up there in the sky. That opens up and it gives birth to Spaceballs, or these Anunnaki creatures, these fallen angels, etc. Phantazoids, monsters, and plasma is, energetic phenomenon that comes down. This is an example of that. If you're looking at the dot matrix that's up there in the sky, this is what you see. We just broke this down during the last one in the Stranger Things, the last episode of Stranger Things that we did. Went into detail about the egg symbolism, the cosmic egg, which means the egg up there in the sky, in the heavens, right? And how it breaks open and it gives birth, and these cosmic snakes come out of it, right? It's called the Aegis. I did have a lot of people criticizing my pronunciation, which I was surprised, but I double checked, and I believe I'm pronouncing this word the correct way. Aegis, or even specifically, it would probably be closer to Agis or Agis, but not the way that they pronounce it in the modern, which is Aegis. That's not how that originally would have been pronounced, because that letter G was a Gimel if you go far back, and it was a guttural, okay, which is down here in the bottom part of the throat, not up here with your teeth, okay? So just to clarify to the people, anyone that wanted to correct me in the comments section, I'm going to continue to say it the correct way, just like I continue to say Uranus. That's not the name of that planet. That's not the name of that god. That's a corruption and a distortion, however it's commonly accepted. So people would say, you're pronouncing it wrong. No, you're all pronouncing it wrong. It's not Uranus, it's Uranos. That's actually how it's supposed to be pronounced. But, the world's ran by the devil right now, and everything's inverted and twisted and upside down, so everyone thinks they're saying some disgusting word the correct way and naming it after planets, and people have all these jokes about it. I don't think it's funny. Aegis. Aegis, right? It means, we have here, it was said by Herodotus to be related to Aix, or Aix, or A-I-X, the letters A-I-X, which means goat. This was the goat god up there in the sky. This is where you get the goat symbolism, the evil goat god. This is the god up above, okay? That is that egg, that shield, that inverted dome that, basically allows electricity to come down into our world. And that electricity incorporates itself into everything. It possesses all sorts of things because it has to. Once it comes into this world, it has to become a part of this world. So that spirit form that descends from above possesses things. And if people have weak spirits, or if they have spirits that are already vibrating at that same negative type of energy, then they'll be amplified and they'll become plasma possessed. They'll be thralls to this mother goddess above or whatnot. But it will also possess the things that we have created, being robots, being technology and whatnot. And all technology and robots, our world will go through a huge electromagnetic pulse where all of our technology will be useless and it'll all turn off. But soon after that, it will turn right back on, and with a life of its own. And they will come to life. And whatever is possessed by that spirit will follow the orders of that spirit, which is it has come down into this world to destroy it in order to recreate it, or to help to recreate it. You have to have the destruction so that it can be rebuilt. And that leads us to Skynet and Terminator type stuff. You know what I mean? That's the net that's in the sky. It's actually a net that comes down in the form of, looks like the stars are falling and stuff, but it's plasma just wrapping around the world and coming down into our world as the glory of God, wraps around the surface of our world. So Vespa is about to get married, and this is representative of the cosmic wedding. She says, I don't love him. She doesn't want to get married to the groom because the groom is this guy. Now, he's wearing purple, and he represents royalty, right? I mean, they all represent royalty, but she doesn't want to get married to royalty. That blue beam does not want to be one with the nobles of our modern age, okay? It doesn't yearn for that because the nobles of our modern age have the opposite energetic signature. They don't mesh. They're not the same kind. So if you're not the same kind, you can't get married. That's what marriage is when two of the same come together and they marry, they merge. You know what I mean? Like attracts like. And this guy's name is Prince Valium. He also represents the sleepers of the world, the people who are asleep. The blue beam doesn't want the sleepers of the world. It wants people who are awake and take action and live. You know what I mean? This guy's name is Prince Valium, and it's related to, it's actually it's a parody of a comic book that was made called Prince Valiant, right? He was valorous, Prince Valiant, and he was one of the Knights of the Round Table. So this guy over here is the opposite world version of this guy right here. This guy right here was seen as a hero and an adventurer and somebody that saved maidens and damsels in distress and fought monsters and, you know, served King Arthur, who himself represents the Sword in the Stone, Excalibur, or the Blue Beam as well. Now, they say we're here to watch Princess Vespa, the daughter of King Roland. Now, let's check out King Roland before she takes off. Now, King Roland, the king of the land, his name Roland comes from Hrod, which means famous or glorious, and land, obviously, right? So a famous land, but more specifically, it's more inclined to glory than it is fame, right? A glorious land. Glory is equated with light, a glow, a supernatural glow. That was glorious. So, a glowing land, which is the Garden of Eden, as we've talked about many times. So we're here to watch Princess Vespa get married and going right past the altar, heading down the ramp and out the door. So this is the blue beam retracting, okay? Didn't want to be part of the nobility that rises up during this dystopian utopia that we have in the golden age, or past the golden age, right? It always ends it always culminates in extremes, right? So right now we're headed to a dystopia. The utopia turns out to not be the best place to live either whenever you live in a utopia that's to such an extreme degree. You know what I mean? So this one is, they're just two sides of the same coin, right? So this is the blue beam going right past the altar, which is the altar of God, which is Mount Meru, heading down the ramp, retracting, going down into the earth, and out the door. The door is the door of the earth, which is Mount Meru, basically, right? It's retracting. This is the blue beam retracting. Now, we're going to meet Lone Star. He's in this flying Winnebago, and it says here on the captioning, raise your hands. That's Atlas symbolism, right? The blue beam that shoots up creates that Y shape up there in the sky as it splits and conforms to the inverted dome above it. And then it says, raise your hands is playing on the stereo. Remember that word stereo when we look up Lone Star here in just a second. So here comes the flying Winnebago. Lone Star represents many of us, right, who have nobility in our hearts, that we are nobles on the inside. We're noble people. We're good people. We're pure and humble and wholesome and truth seekers, as opposed to most of the nobility that I've seen in the world today. They're the exact opposite. You know what I mean? They are nobility by declaration instead of inheritance. You know what I mean? Anyways, I was trying to think of which one looks more real. This looks pretty real. This looks like it could be a Winnebago in space. I was trying to compare, you know, what they say is reality versus the actual movies, right? This is supposed to be real, that they shot a car up there into space and it's flying around. This was Elon Musk's personal vehicle up there flying around, right? I'd rather have Lone Stars if it was me. But they say this one's out there towards like Mars. It's as far away as Mars is, allegedly. Now on the side of the Winnebago, Lone Star's Winnebago, we can see the eagle. There's a lot of symbolism. I don't want to get too deep into the eagle symbolism. I'll bring it up another time if you guys remind me on another video. 5 represents V, which is the Vav, right? In Roman numerals. But then we have Lone Star, right? So if you check out Lone Star, the one star, I don't know if you knew this, but there is actually only one real star in the sky. All the other ones are just luminaries. They're just lights, right? But the star of the show, the one at center stage, is not a light. Not at all. It's the one that makes all of the other stars. Let's check out the root of star. It comes from the Proto-Indo-European root word meaning, which is ster. You take a look at it here. Ster or ster, like monster. This is what that is. Stir or ster, which means stiff. So this word star means stiff. Specifically, we can see other implications like solid. And even this word, stregti, which is related to it, means to become frozen. A solid star. a frozen star, an actual physical star that you could land on, that you could go to and touch or whatever, if you're able to, as opposed to just luminaries, as opposed to just lights in the sky. We broke this down quite a few times here on my channel, talking about, looking at our world through the eyes of an alternative cosmology with a firmament up there that breaks open and then refreezes and conforms to the new electrical fields or the electromagnetic current and creates an inverted dome at the top of our larger firmament dome. And if it's made of ice, this is the frozen star. This is the lone star up there in the sky that has all these little domes and craters on it, and it projects light out into our heavens, which makes the others. This is the leader star. This is the real moon, who was called Sin in the ancient world, or Sheen. And this falls every other pocket. This is also Humpty Dumpty. We also did a huge, a huge breakdown on that. Now, we go back to Lone Star. We meet Lone Star and Barf. Barf. We're going to talk about Lone Star first, right? Now, all of this, what I just told you, all of this, I believe, is one of the main secrets of Freemasonry. So this is a huge secret. They don't want people to know about the apocalypse. They don't want people to know about the true shape and nature of our world. So they keep this secret. And they have their good reasons. At least they think that they have their good reasons. I'm not saying they're evil or bad for keeping secrets. I'm not on that side of the fence at all. However, I think it's fun to share all this. Plus, it helps me to study and learn it all too. So we see the hidden hand, right? Whenever they put their hand into their, by their heart, but they hide it like that, that means they've taken an oath that's a secret oath. When you put your hand on your heart, but you hide that hand, it's now a secret oath. When you have an exposed hand, it's a public oath. But when you hide that hand, it's a secret oath that they have taken. They have taken this oath not to talk about this to people and not to let them know about this, right? For various reasons. I could see reasons why it makes sense that they would not tell everyone about the apocalypse, and I could see reasons why people would be like, I would like to know about that, you should tell me. I could see both sides of it. But regardless, it's called the hidden hand. Right? And the real hidden hand, the reason it's a hand symbolism, not just because they're making an oath and whatnot, but it's the hand of God that's hidden up there in the skies, or the hand of a god or an entity or an energetic entity, right? Which spreads out like a hand, which is because it's plasma, and it spreads out, the further down in our world it comes, just like lightning. So there's many different examples of this hidden hand, right? From politicians to singers to celebrities, actors and actresses, many of them share these secrets. That's one of their main thing is to share these secrets, but they don't tell you what it's about. That's one of the rules that they have, is to disclose information. Even those space travelers, or what I call the fractalverse travelers, even they have a certain code that they live by. And a part of that code seems to be that they have to disclose. They can't just lie to the public because they bring the knowledge. And if they just brought the knowledge and then they just lied to everybody, that would truly make them evil. And they would have a certain karmic debt for that. So to sort of try to escape that karmic debt, that might be one reason. There may be others as well. Either way, they have an oath. They have taken that sworn an oath not to reveal these secrets to anybody. I have not taken that oath. Take that. And I have fun. I have fun sharing these things. I've learned them, I've sensed them, etc. And I enjoy sharing them because honestly, I don't believe most people will believe the things I'm saying. I mean, no offense to anybody. I just don't feel that people would either believe them, or that if they did believe them, that they would do anything about it. And I feel like we're so close to the end or the beginning that it really doesn't matter anymore. So there's many different examples of people all across the board who use these different hand signs. This is just one of them. Now, Spaceball City. Pardon me. Let's check out Spaceball City, right? Now you can see all these little balls out there in space. This is to mock the current cosmology of all the little globs floating around out there in the heavens, which is really people staring at the underside of our ceiling, right? And they know this. I totally feel like a lot of them know this. Maybe not all of them, but there's got to be people out there that know this. Look at the top of this one. They have their own little Capitol building. You see that right there? That's their little Capitol building. This is old world architecture that was built and designed to work with the amplified electrical field that used to be in our atmosphere. This is called the Capitol, right? The word capital, you see all these like pillars and all that stuff, right? There's this symbolism of the pillars, the world pillars that hold up the sky. And then you have the Dalet at the top, which is the depressurization point or the door of the sky. And then you have the domes, which attract electricity, spires, which repel, etc. And there may be more to it than that, than even I have studied. This is inside of the Capitol building of the United States. This exact one, actually. So if you go inside of this dome-shaped building right here, which is a replica of our sky, of our world, this is our world in building form. That's why oftentimes in the movies, our world is represented and symbolized by a house. You know, the whole movie that takes place inside of a house is actually taking place in our world. You know what I mean? But this is inside of it. Now, if you go inside of it and look straight up, you'll see that there's this fresca. There's this painting at the top of these people way up there. It's hard to see, but I'm going to zoom in on it and we're going to check it out together, right? You look up, this is called the Apotheosis of Washington, and you can see George Washington right there in the middle, right? The first president of the United States. Apotheosis means to make a god. This is turning Washington into a god. That's the name of this painting that is in the Capitol building of the United States. They have made the first president, and therefore every president afterwards, a god, elevating him quite literally on the picture to godhood. Not only did they make him a god, but they surrounded him by other gods. If you take a look around this edge right here, there's all these other actual real gods. And then, of course, there's the North Pole map right there in the middle. I don't know if you guys caught on to that. I broke that down in the last live stream, but that's definitely the North Pole map. That's the lake right there in the middle of the circular lake, the four rivers, etc. Now, check this out. I'm going to zoom into these different gods that are around the outside edges. So, like for example, right down here, let's check her out. This is Lady Justice, right? And she's swooping down as a Valkyrie to kill people. Right? And the Valkyries are the ones who choose who lives and who dies. They can choose that because they're plasma. And they come down and they see energetically. They can see your energy. They can see your spirit. They know if you're good or bad. They come down from the sky. She's got this eagle with her. Now take a good look at this eagle real quick. I want to show you this eagle. This eagle has these arrows in its talons, and that represents the arrows of God coming down, which is just cosmic thunderbolts. And you can even see there's a thunderbolt right here next to it. That doesn't symbolize a crack or anything. I'll show you cracks, and I'll show you the symbolism of the cracks on the dome. Check this. This is weird. This guy right here is holding this, like, it looks like a staff, but there's like a hand behind it, a little tiny hand. I don't know what that's about. That was just mysterious to me. These people are holding on to their torches, the torch symbolism, like we talked about earlier, trying to keep that fire or illumination. This guy's wearing all metal as a Faraday cage to protect him from the incoming electricity. You see that? And then he's holding up this noble robe, this robe of the kings or nobility, hoping that the nobles will protect him from the apocalypse. The nobles cannot protect you from the apocalypse. They'll start talking about it the closer and closer we get. And they'll start talking, the government's coming up with ideas for your safety, and don't worry, we'll protect you. And it's the apocalypse is not that big a deal. And they'll try to convince all of you to just chill out and don't talk about the apocalypse. And if there is anything bad that'll happen, they'll protect you. They can't. They can't and they will not. They're going to leave you behind as they blast off into the sky and leave through the opening that has appeared in the heavens. So your nobility is going to be gone, and the ones that don't will be hiding, running around, screaming, hiding. I don't know what they're going to be doing. Here's another one. Let's see. This one is Minerva, aka Athena, I believe. Let's check this one out. So here we've got Athena, and she's pointing down at these modern devices, and we can see what looks like Benjamin Franklin. Morse, I forgot his first name, the dude that makes Morse code or invented Morse code. And then this guy, I forgot his name as well, but he invented the first submarine in the late 1700s, or the first practical submarine, I should say, right? And she's showing them how to make batteries. That's what's going on over here. They're making batteries, these old school Baghdad battery type things. Isn't that interesting? And then over here, we've got people who are using the compass. I'll zoom out a little bit. Oh, maybe I got to zoom in a little bit. Yeah, you can see them using the compass down here, or the dividers also. And it's the children being indoctrinated and taught. Interesting. Now let's check out some more stuff on this Apotheosis of Washington fresca. We've got Neptune, right? Neptune, the god of the sea, etc. We've got his daughter Venus, I believe. I can't remember if that's his daughter or not. But anyways, this rope that she's putting down into the ocean, that's that transatlantic wire that like sends electricity down under the ocean, where they pretend that signals are being sent through satellite and, you know, all that type of nonsense. It's not. It's going under the ocean in these wires. And these people, these gods are holding on to these wires and they're putting them down into the ocean. Watch, let me put it way down. Oh, man. Yeah, I don't want to zoom in too much on that. Anyways, let me zoom out. I don't know how much of a painting we can get away with. And then you have this industrial buildings over here off to the side, etc. This might be Cupid. I can't remember. Let's take a look at some more. Hermes. Hermes comes into play and is going to come into play even more here in just a bit. So we have the god Hermes. Check out what he's doing. He's the god of commerce, the god of merchants. And he's handing a bag full of gold coins to this guy. And I don't remember his name, but this is the guy that financed the Revolutionary War. So we have Hermes giving a bag of money to this guy in order to start a war. This is all on the Apotheosis of Washington thing. This guy in the back here is like, what the hell? Look at this, man. Anyways, I think this is, I don't know, that looks like it's in the ocean, some kind of barge. Oh, you can't see it. This thing right here. You see that? There's that weird looking cherub dude. Anyways, yeah, so Hermes, this is why Hermes is the god of commerce, right? You can see this little staff there. Right? You see his little staff? That's the blue beam and the energy that spirals up and down it. It's electricity and it moves in a current and it flows up and it flows right back down. And that's what people see. And that's Hermes. And when there's three of those beams, anode, cathode, and Mount Meru, you have Hermes Trismegistus, or thrice great. Right? And this is where they all meet up and they trade things, etc. You can see these guys over here. Now, over here we've got Hephaestus, also known as Vulcan. Right? He's like the god of creating things. These gods are all mentioned in the book of Enoch when these fallen angels came down and taught men. I mean, this guy's not an actual human. He's not an actual real person. He's electromagnetic phenomenon that touches the minds and the brains of people, the actual physical brains, and opens up your neural pathways to allow you to use 100% of your brain. And then all of a sudden people are like figuring things out rather quickly. So people are inventing things, weapons, unfortunately, right? And this is why this particular fallen angel was ridiculed for teaching mankind, you know, the use of weapons and forging steel to hurt others and stuff. This one, Circe, I can't remember her name. But anyways, this is like the goddess of agriculture and whatnot. She's got the cornucopia, right? The fruit of the loom, the real fruit of the loom logo. We've got some other goddesses picking up grain. They're tying up the horses, which to me is kind of sad. Horses used to be our friends. If you have to tie up any animal and domesticate it, it's not your friend. It's a slave. And the one day, all of the animals will be set free. So if you want to ride a horse, you have to be a friend to that horse. You have to ask permission. And that goes for any animal. So watch out in the world to come, because the animals are going to band together and they're going to own this world once more. Anyways, let's talk about that dome. Okay, so I showed you the Capitol building, right? On top of Spaceball City. We talked about the real actual Capitol building. It's all these domes. That represents our sky. Check this out. The Capitol building dome has over 1,300 known cracks and breaks. Water that has seeped over in the years has caused rusting on the ornamentation and staining on the interior of the rotunda just a few feet below the fresco, the Apotheosis of Washington, which we just went over, which is painted on the rotunda's canopy. That is huge and an omen of our world that the dome is going to crack and break open if it's not already cracking. I wouldn't be surprised if those weird, strange sky sounds were the dome cracking. I don't know, but check this out. It's not just the Capitol dome that's cracking in Washington, but all of them are cracking right now. I don't know if you know this, but they're going through like extensive repairs and stuff. This one right here is from Illinois State Capitol Dome. Flaws on the exterior of the dome, including significant cracking. That's not it. The Capitol Dome in, where is this one? Kentucky. Also, this article says, the base of the dome has open cracks, and they're going through renovation to fix these domes. Also, in Missouri, Missouri's Capitol Dome has a crack in the dome. All of these domes are starting to crack, which was shown to us in Truth in Movies, reflected to us in the form of prophecy and ancient Oblivion in Songbirds and Snakes, that really horrible, terrible sequel or prequel to the Hunger Games. But they did show you some good symbolism. As a movie, it sucked. As a symbolic elements, it was pretty good, okay? But they have this exact same thing in the Capitol, where the building, the dome, cracks open, and then they lower snakes down in through the roof, which are those wonderful serpents that we talked about, the dragons and serpents that come down in through the roof in this movie. That's what happens. Now, also Capitol comes from, I don't have it to share with you, I just know, but it comes from kaput. Kaput el. Kaput means the head, or the covering on top, like my cap, right? And then el, or the head of God, or the capping of God, or the capping of energy. That's why these buildings are shaped like that and why they're called capitals, right? They are significant places of power. Now, that was the Apotheosis of Washington. They tried to make him a god. Can you guess which god he might represent? Any guesses in the chat of which god this might represent? A? All right. I think you get the point, right? That's the Apotheosis of Washington. Back to the movie. Now we meet President Skroob. He's inside of the Capitol building. This is inside of his office. His name is President Skroob. He's a terrible dude. All he's interested in is money. They make that clear throughout the entire movie that all of the Spaceballs are merchants. They are under maritime law, which is why you have a flag back there, which has a picture of a leg that's up in the air. And it's not so much sexual as it is an innuendo about having a leg up on others. Okay? So it's a leg that's up. That's their flag. But this is President Skroob's office. And he's the leader of the people that want to make money. Let's check out his name, Skroob. Now, some people just want to assume that these are just gibberish words that are made up. They're just funny words, or whatever. And then maybe it's a combination of two other funny words. I don't buy that. I believe it comes from an etymological root, which is scarab or scarab, right? The President Scarab or Skroob. You want to say it like that? The scarab was commonly called, or is today commonly called, the dung beetle. It's not a dung beetle whatsoever. I'll show you. So here's how it was portrayed in ancient Egypt. The scarab was holding up Atum. Is that Atum? Let me just double check on my memory here. Let's see. Sun god, Egypt, rays. Boom. I don't think it was Atum. That's why I'm checking on it. Hold on. Let me just double check. We broke this down when we were doing Stargate, remember? Aton. That's what it was. Not Atum, Aton. I mean, it's probably the exact same, right? It doesn't matter. Aton. Aton. Atun. It's probably the same. So it's so close that it doesn't matter too much to me. But basically, this is the depressurization hole in the sky. This is the plasma coming down, right? All of this energy amplifies all of your energy. So it brings illumination. It wakes people up, all of it, energetically. And the scarab beetle itself, it's just a figure. and how it looks with one arms going up and then the legs bowing out. This is the squatter man glyph or figure, right? And then it's showing you the wings on either side, not because the beetle has wings, but because that's the great cosmic bird. That's the shape that it takes as the glory spreads out, or the auroras feather out and they create these feathers up there in the sky or the heavens, right? That's the shape that people saw up in the sky. They would draw the scarab in different ways. Oftentimes, I mean every time. This is what it was holding up. This is why they called it the dung beetle, because, you know, this dung beetles look like they're holding this, but that's not what that is. See the snakes coming out? Snakes don't come out of the sun, like, ever, okay? Direct, straight, focused beams of light come out of the sun, not undulating anything, not undulating snakes or anything like that, right? Now, this one's particularly interesting because it's drawn like, it's drawn like Horus, how Horus is depicted as a falcon. And Horus has these bird legs that stick out. You can see this particular scarab has bird wings. That's because they're the exact same glyph. They represent the exact same thing. And you'll notice that when they draw this falcon of Horus, that it has these multicolored feathers all the time, because this is the phoenix. If people didn't know what this was, they would call this a phenomenon. They'd just be like, oh, that's the phoenix phenomenon. If you know what this is, then you can start to understand and break down why it's multicolored and why it's shaped in this particular way and why it's associated with particular regions and locations and why it's directly underneath a circle that has snakes coming out of it. This is what the falcon typically looks like, right? It could be a phoenix, it could be a falcon, it could be a blue bird of happiness, it could be, I mean, there's all types of symbolism. The cosmic bird, the bird that, you know, creates these winds or world storms, etc. Always underneath that red circle. This right here is the pendant from The Secret of Nim, which are the survivors. This is the secret of the survivors. We broke that movie down as well, right? This is that magical pendant that Mrs. Brisby wears, that her husband Jonathan gave to her, which was a part of a secret society, basically. All right, let's continue on. This is the dung beetle. What they're drawing is not a dung beetle at all. This is a nasty, this is the inversion of it, okay? This is the base, this is what the base see. The basic people of the world, this is what they see when they see this. They're like, oh, it's just a dung beetle. Yeah, they just liked beetles that rolled up balls of poop and rolled them around. They just idolized them. No, they didn't. It's symbolic. You know what I mean? It's also symbolic of Atlas, who is like a humanoid dung beetle, symbolically speaking. He holds up this huge mound above his head. We talked about King Og holding up this huge mountain directly above the saints, the camp of the saints, or the center of the world, the North Pole, etc. But he's really holding on to the moon. It's really a blue beam of energy reaching up and holding on to the lone star up there in the sky. The ice star, the cold star, the hard star, the stiff star, the physical, actual moon, not the luminary. All right, so we go to President Skroob. He's on the phone and people are calling him and they're like, oh yeah, I heard that we're running out of air. He's like, oh no, there's absolutely no air shortage whatsoever. I promise you. So that's the story of the Anunnaki, essentially, right? The Anunnaki had to, the story goes, the official fringe story says that the Anunnaki came here to repair the atmosphere of their own planet. That gets deeper too. I'm not going to get too deep into that story. I will another time. But they came down because something was wrong with their atmosphere. They came down into our atmosphere, right? Depressurization. This is a crisis on infinite Earths. This happens all over the place. Now we get back to the princess and Dot Matrix, and they're being shot at by Spaceball 1. Pew, 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 pew. These red lasers, right? And she says, it's either the 4th of July. I can't do her accent at all. It's either the 4th of July or someone's trying to kill us. And then you got they're being shot at, right? Pew, 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 pew. So it's this 4th of July reference with these red lasers, right? This is what happens. That's the summertime apocalypse. Not exactly on the 4th of July. I'll show you why. But this is why we set off fireworks on the 4th of July. The exact same reason why we set off fireworks for New Year's. Those two events, the 4th of July and New Year's Eve, are both celebrations of a new year, the dawn of time, the dawn of a new age, both of them, because those are cyclically, they bounce back and forth between the apocalypses at those times. Now, those seasons also shift. Okay, so keep that in mind. But the winter solstice, the summer solstice, you got these red lasers coming out of the sky, explosions, etc. And if you don't, then people would celebrate. And they mark the occasion by making the sky do that anyways, because they were anticipating it doing that and exploding and stuff. Now, this is why we celebrate the 4th of July. There were 11 days that were added to our calendar in 1752. Because the Catholic Church insisted that we switch to the Gregorian calendar from the Julian calendar. Much of the world was against this. Even Catholics the world across. They were not a fan of this at all. They were basically going to skip 11 days. You know what I mean? They went from September 2nd to September 14th. If I was born during this time, I would not have had a birthday. Like, I would have been born actually on the 15th, I suppose. Anyways, my point is there were 11 days added to the calendar. So let's check this out. This is the calendar for this year, 2024. If you look at June and we start on the summer solstice on the 20th, we count 3 days forward. Right? We count 3 days forward because it takes 3 days to see if the sun is going to return or not. The sun stops for 3 days. Same thing at wintertime, right? Around the 20th, 21st of December, the ancients would track the sun as it went way off into the horizon, and they would keep track of it to see if it would continue disappearing. I mean, going so far away, it would just disappear. Same thing during the summertime. We need to keep track of it to see if it transcends, I think it's the Tropic of Cancer, the northern tropic, to see if it comes back from there, because it's supposed to, but it takes 3 days. So we have to count 3 days, right? 3 days. 1, 2, 3. Now we have to add those 11 days, right? Because we added 11 days to the calendar, right? So if we add 11 days like we have, we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, which brings us to the 4th of July, right? So the 4th of July really, is I can't remember how to say it. Numbers are not my big strong suit. But basically, the 4th of July symbolizes the actual summer solstice where it used to be. Okay, so the summer solstice used to be on what we call today the 4th of July, but it's really not. Okay, so anyways, that's when the summer solstice happens. The 4th of July is a big celebration of the new world, the apocalypse, etc. Then we got King Roland here, who very quickly throws the wink. The one eye, right? Which is a secret. Those who are keeping a secret of the one eye. The people, people will cover their eye, the Illuminati and the Freemasons, whatnot. They do that because one eye and only one eye represents that up there, which they point to, which they make pictures of people doing this exact pose that I'm doing right now. All throughout time and history, people will point straight up to the sky, and most people just assume like, oh, they must be a Christian and believe in God or whatever, therefore they're a good person or whatever. No. They're pointing at the evil eye in the sky. They're pointing to sin, to the actual physical moon, you know what I mean? Which is above the mountain of sin or Sinai, or sin AI, you could say. So anyways, this is the king, and he's doing the winking thing, right? Saying that he knows the secret of the one eye. That's what it is. It also means things are about to change. Typically, if things are going bad and somebody winks, they're like, be patient. Things are about to change, and that's that one eye opening. All right. So then we got the princess. Let me just make sure my chat's good. All right, cool. Then we got the princess, right? She represents the blue beam, as we talked about, or the west, the far west, which is Mount Meru and the entrance down inside of the earth. And we got the blue beam right there, clear as day. And it says they've already got her in their magnetic beam. This plasma is electromagnetic in nature. So it's blue beam symbolism. And then, of course, their radar gets jammed, right? I can't make all the sound effects. We've lost the bleeps, the creeps, and the sweeps. I don't know how to do it. That dude from Police Academy cracks me up. Anyways, for me, this symbolically represents what happens. This is one of the signs and the omens that happens during the apocalypse, is the walls bleeding. Okay, this is a monitor bleeding, walls bleeding, etc. It's all the same. Reminds me of blood falls, as we've talked about during my omen segment in Antarctica. This is Antarctica for me is the ice wall. Where the dome touches the earth, basically, right? I mean, it's got land portion, which is the extremes. But you go far enough out, you're just going to be on ice, and you're going to start walking upside down as you go up on underneath part of the dome. And the dome bleeds, right? Or the holes open up and allows red spectrum plasma to come through, just like it's shown to us in Stephen King's Under the Dome, when they have these prophecies of red stars falling in lines. And then we got Barf. Barf says, I'm a Mog, half man, half dog. I'm my own best friend, right? It's very cute. It's very, childlike in nature. I like it. But he represents the Wolfman, basically. Not so much a werewolf. Werewolves tend to look more like dogs, but the Wolfman is a dog man. And dog men not only did exist in ancient times, and we've got many different instances, historical records of actual dog men that walked around. They exist now, today. Okay? Mutants, these people are basically mutants. I'm not saying he's a bad person or nothing. Like, there's good mutants and bad mutants or whatever. But we have, our cellular structure can mutate. The X-Men is a true story. And you just wait until the world's electrically amplified and all the parts that don't make sense and all of your dormant DNA and all that stuff activates and turns on. You're going to see people, all kinds of strange looking people, right? Some might be more beautiful looking traditionally. Some might not be. But we have real actual wolf men or dog men, you could say, right? I mean, obviously he's not a dog, but that's the label that have been given to these people. Right? This is really what they look like. Now, I also will take it a step further because I talk about how the elven race, when they age, that they live for like 1,000 years or more. Right? The El that come down. They're the immortals that come down. When the dome goes back up over our world and the pressure starts to build and stuff, their immortality starts to become lost, especially when they come back in during the time of the flood. Whenever the beams of light have retracted and oxygen, we're losing our oxygen supply in this world, right? So they start to age quicker as entropy exponentially increases. And we go through exponential increases of degradation in all forms, spiritual and physical degradation, which is, if you're looking, you got to be blind not to see it today. Especially the spiritual degradation part of it, but we age faster and faster and faster. It's a quickening of time. Time's starting to speed up in many different ways. But anyways, the elves, right, their ears continue to grow for hundreds of years. They get long, pointy ears. Their hair starts to grow in different places. They even start to grow horns and stuff. And the older ones, the elder of the El or the Elu, right, they tend to go off on their own, and they just are... the stories at least indicate that they become outcasts, or they're seen as being the ugly ones, the older race, the older ones, whereas the young, stronger, more beautiful gods, or the Vanir, you could call them, they tend to be in charge and they tend to deal with humanity, etc. Whereas the older ones, they're going through puberty, different stages of puberty, and they have. This is the whole story of Little Red Riding Hood. This is the wolf that dresses up like grandma, basically. Right? My, what big teeth you have. Well, that's because their gum line is receding over hundreds of years. They have long, pointy ears that keep growing. They have big old noses that keep growing. And they start looking like orcs. You know what I mean? Anyways, what else we got? So, they're chasing Lone Star in his little Winnebago, right? And he takes off. Pachoom! Takes off into space, and Dark Helmet's like, we got to catch up to him. We need to go to and then his buddy's like, let's go to light speed. Prepare for light speed. He's like, no. Light speed's too slow. He's like, light speed's too slow? And he's like, yeah, we need to go to ludicrous speed. He's like, sir, we've never gone that fast before. We've never gone to ludicrous speed. Now check this out, right? Pshoo! They're going ludicrous speed, super fast. And Dark Helmet flies back. I mean, you have to imagine like applying the same concept to actual space as it's presented to us by NASA and Elon and the other space agencies, right? So they're flying through space at ludicrous speeds, right? First, they start off at light speed, which makes sense, the speed of light. But then they get into speeds that don't make sense. Anything faster than that, like ridiculous speed. And then the last one, ludicrous speed, right? Check this out. This is one of the planes that goes Mach 3.2. This is the design that it looks like. I forgot what this particular model's called, but this is a super fast plane. It goes Mach 3, over Mach 3. This is a plane that goes, allegedly, Mach 23. Mach 3, Mach 23. No, right? They're giving us ludicrous speeds. How about this? If you look it up, I ask, how fast does the Earth fly through space? Or how fast does the space ball move? 67,000 miles an hour. That's like 100 times Mach 3. I don't know if that's correct or not. How fast... And then how fast does the actual galaxy move that we are allegedly in? 490,000 miles per hour. You know what those are? Those are ludicrous speeds. Ludicrous means ridiculous. It means basically not real, made up. These are ludicrous speeds, okay? So the Spaceballs go ludicrous speeds. So funny. That's so fast. My brains are going into my feet. If you're going that fast, you wouldn't exist. Okay? You wouldn't even go through time. You would just, I don't know. You'd blink into something else. You would not be here in this existence at all. He's like, we passed them. Stop this thing. Stop. His face is all distorted the whole time. It's one of the funniest scenes I've ever seen in the movies. He's like, stop. Okay, so imagine you're going at ludicrous speeds, NASA, and then you need to stop or slow down. How do you do that, right? We can't stop. We're going too fast. It's dangerous. This is how they stop in space. That. You see that? They call these reverse thrusters, right? Here's allegedly the thruster. This is what they use to get out of the atmosphere. That makes sense because it's pressing against something. It's pushing against the atmosphere. They will lie to you and tell you, oh, you know, this works. That does not work. If you're in a vacuum, the way they say, even though they renege on the vacuum concept all the time. They talk about space weather and stuff like that. It's not a vacuum. Anyways, imagine going ludicrous speeds and Dark Helmet's like, stop! And you're like, psst, psst, psst. Like you never stop. You'll never stop. You'll die going ludicrous speeds before you ever even can slow down or stop, okay? And this is what they want you to believe. All right, so he tries to reach for the space brake, which is non-existent and not real. And he pulls it, and then Dark Helmet goes flying. Boom! Right into the control panel console. This is like, I had to rewind it. How many people rewound this and played this time and time again, right? This was like one of the funniest scenes in the movies where they like slow down. They're going that fast. Imagine, right? How fast did the Apollo 11 go in order to get to the moon, allegedly? 24,000 miles an hour. Okay, time to slow down. Anyways, I thought that was interesting. Now, they get to this part of the movie where this is, he's like, they needed to find them because they overshot them by like weeks, right? And he's like, what part is this? Oh, he's like, let's get Spaceballs the movie. He's like, we're still recording the movie. How do we get Spaceballs the movie? He's like, instant cassettes. And then they put in Spaceballs the movie that they're in the middle of recording, right? And then they show you the movie back here in the background. And then on another TV, you can see the movie again. And on another TV again. It's sort of infinite. And what this is it represents, for me, what I call the fractal verse. It's fractal, and it is all happening now. Everything that happens now is happening now, right? So the movie plays it like it's a joke. However, it's extremely serious. It's very real. That within a fractal verse, it's like we live on a movie, and time is all existent all at once, just like it is on a DVD. For those of you who remember what DVDs are, right? It's all there. All the time that happens in this movie is collected on a little disc. All at once. It's all there. anyway, so this is the fractal verse. This is them seeing multiple realities, multiple earths, basically, multiple versions of themselves, right? Possibly slightly different versions where things slightly happened differently, just like in that old TV show Sliders. Anyways, so this is in the movie. They say everything that's happening now is happening now on all of these worlds, on all of these TVs. It's the same never-ending story. All right, let's move on to the next slide. I think somehow we're in the now. Somehow we ended up in the now. I'm not sure how that happened. Looks like everything that's happened. Everything that's happening now seems to be happening now. Let me see if I can get us out of here. Hold on. Let me see if I can fix this up. Let's see, maybe this? Ah, woo, man, that freaked me out there for a minute. All right, so everything, we're now then. We're now and then. We're not at now any longer. So we can drop down. We don't have to get that deep, okay? Let's come back to perceived illusion of division in time so that we can move on with our presentation. Otherwise, we'd be back there forever. You'd be stuck there. All right, so we got Lone Star and the princess having a little chat, getting cozy together. And she's asking him about who he is, right? And he says, well, I was found on a doorstep of a monastery. He's an orphan. Then aren't we always talking about the orphans, right? And I said that it seems like every main character in every movie I watch is an orphan. It's this orphan symbolism, right? The orphans tying into the apocalypse and many other things too, but a lot of orphan symbolism. She says, well, didn't the monks tell you who your parents were? And he says they couldn't. They took a vow of silence. The monks took a vow of silence. This is just one. This is Saint Dominic. There's many examples of people making this particular, hand gesture or whatever, but look above his head. You see that up there? The 8-pointed star pointing right at it and also telling you not to talk about it. Interesting. I also wonder why they shaved their heads at the top like that. I wonder if that has something to do with electricity. I never really thought about it before until just now. All right, so he says, we got to get moving before dawn. And then he says, we aren't going to get very far once that blazing sun gets overhead. So this is a reference to the summertime apocalypse, which we're heading into, where the sun gets hotter and hotter and hotter during the daytime, eventually turning into just a blue ring up there in the sky when it's just focused, super focused, and daytime will be dangerous because it will burn whatever's underneath it, right? So he says, we need to get moving before dawn. This is staying ahead of the sun or behind it. You can stay in the nighttime side and stay away from the sunlight because it will get hotter and hotter until eventually they will mandate that you stay inside. Like the governments and stuff, they'll make laws and stuff. People need to stay inside. And then they fade out and then they fade the sun in, or it's called the dissolve. They transition and they show you the sun, but they don't just show you the regular old sun. Look, they show you a ring, a sun with a big, bright, burning ring around it, almost like an eclipse, but it's not. I thought that was interesting. And then they show you these guys that come out singing their little song. Dink, dink. Dink, 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 dink. Dink, dink. Right? Why did they say that? Why are they called the dinks? Why do they say the word dink all the time, right? Maybe it's just a funny, stupid word because I don't know what it means. Ha, ha, ha. Dink, dink, dink. Ha, 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 ha. Let's just say nonsense, right? Okay. If you're a child, then that's fun. I get it. But if you're maturing and you're moving past being, just a child and you want to apply some knowledge, right? We check out the word dink. To me, this is personal because on my mother's side, her maiden name is Dinkle, which means small god, basically, right? If we look up the word dinky, some people might say, that's dinky. Look at that dinky little thing or whatever, right? Dinky means neat, trim, dainty and small. Dink, finely dressed as well. So finely dressed, small, dainty, neat, and trim, represented by these tiny little humanoids that live in this desert area, symbolically on a trip to basically Mount Meru. Also represented by the Oompa Loompas, right? They're dainty, trim, finely dressed, neat, small. Like, that's where Willy Wonka finds them, by the way. So these Oompa Loompas are dinks, basically. Also, you have the Munchkins. Same exact story. It's just told from a different perspective with a different flavor, right? The Munchkins are these tiny little people. These tiny people, in our ancient Oblivion, our history that has been hidden and forgotten, exist. They did exist. They were known the world across. This used to be common knowledge that there were these legendary tribes of people. Now, this is a map of Oz. If you look at the map of Oz and we zoom in, you can see that it says right here, this side of this island, which, by the way, let's take a look at this side. This side is Munchkin country, right? There's much more to this. But if you look, it says impassable desert. That's where our characters are now. They have gone through this area, passing through the impassable desert, and then they have gone into Munchkin country. They're at the edge of Munchkin country right now as they head towards this area where they will go underground into Yggdrasil, the Tree of Life, and, they will meet the God of Knowledge or whatever. So, this is on our old maps. Oz is real. The whole Wizard of Oz story. Except for here, it's a desert, so they're showing you the magical world. They're showing you when the oceans were removed after the depressurization and all the beams of light are shooting up into the sky. Here is afterwards. Whenever, the flood waters are entering into our world, right? But right here, if you zoom in on this particular quadrant, in big letters, the biggest letters in this whole map says pygmy. Right? It says, here live the pygmies, tiny people, basically, right? So they're all pygmies, basically. It's what they represent. And the pygmies lead them to these doors that take them underground that are marked by the ancient Vav, the ancient letter V, which to us looks like a Y, which is the blue beam that shoots up and splits up. This is the Atlas symbol. These are the doors. This is Janus, or the Ganos, or the garden, the strong garden, right? The Garden of Eden. They go down. They open up the doors. They go down inside of the earth, and they're walking around very much reminiscent of the Wizard of Oz, right? They're very much doing the exact same thing. Not because, they thought it'd be funny to make fun of the Wizard of Oz. That's a plus. But it's because they're retelling the same old story. I could pull up 100 pictures that reflect every single image that we've already shared. And if you pay attention to this particular series, I already have. We do all the time. Every story is our story retold from different perspectives and different experiences and stuff, time and time and time again, through our perception filters. It comes through, and then we put it right back out and we cartoonify it. And exactly like in The Wizard of Oz, one of them gets scared and runs away. Right? One of them gets scared and runs away. And then they meet Yogurt, which to me has, a lot of symbolism having to do with the land of milk and honey and things like that. He says, I am the keeper of a greater magic, the Schwartz. And they all freak out like, oh my God, the Schwartz. Why did they pick that word? Is it just because it's a funny nonsense word? No, it has meaning. Let's figure out what Schwartz means. If you look it up, the etymology of Schwartz comes from Svart. So like, for example, in fantasy, the dark elves are called Svartalfs. In Norse mythology, the world of the dark elves is called Svartalfheim. Svart, or Swart, you could say. Now, the Oz comes from the OZ that they put at the end of it, Oz, which means powerful or strong. And Svart means black. It means swarthy, black, with the implication of dirty or having dirt on it or whatever, but it means black. So the power of the powerful blackness, which is a reference to Rupus Nigra, which is the black mountain, the black stone that carries this electrical charge through it, so that those that come to it, all you have to do is get nearer and nearer to it. And if you touch this, you'll be imbued with that same power that rushes through your body and opens up your neural pathways and allows you to have access to information you never even thought possible, where you see clearly like you never have before. You know what I mean? So that's the power of the Svarts, or the Svartos. Now he comes in and he's like, merchandising. Remember, this place, Mount Meru, where they are underground right now, above ground, that's the meeting place of the world, or it used to be the meeting place of the world, where they would trade and stuff. This is where the Scythians, the Tartarians, all of these ancient tribes of people who were known for being seafaring people that traveled and especially sold and went by their own laws that they made on their boats that they took with them, right? They took the laws of this old world and they applied those laws to their boats. The captain of the boat was the one that made the laws. These were called maritime laws, or the laws of the ocean, right? So these traders would go back and forth and they would trade, and they would always try to, get the one up or the leg up on others so that they could become rich. They weren't stupid. They're like, I'm not saying that's stupid. I think even trade is kind and fair and sensible, but they were not known for trading evenly. They were always trying to trade up. You know what I mean? So they would give you something that to you was still valuable, but to them, they're getting something that's more valuable, right? And this was their ways. So they were the traders, which became the traitors, right? The people who are always trying to get a leg up on other people and take advantage of them, etc., and so on and so forth. Spaceballs, the coloring book. I thought this was super hilarious because I stopped and zoomed in on this. It's not Spaceballs, the coloring book at all. I just put a Spaceballs sticker on a Transformers coloring book. Optimus Prime, which we did break down the Transformers movie as well, if you want to go check that out in the playlist. Spaceballs, the flamethrower. Super funny. Here's a picture of Hermes, by the way, the god that represents commerce, communication from the gods. So they would take information from Mount Meru, etc. They were the enlightened ones, and they would go and teach other people. They would share the information that was passed on to them by the gods. And here you can see Hermes, with his little staff or whatnot, the caduceus, with the beam. And then at the top of that beam, there's always a circle. And then under that circle, there's always bird wings, right? Because that is the tree of life. Here it is again. Oh, and he's got these wings and stuff. He's also known for being the god who can walk on water. This says, I am the god of movement, traveling through the air, over the land, and on water. Not on water as in he rode on boats. He could walk on the water. As a matter of fact, he could not go under the water because the water where Hermes was seen, the water where that blue beam comes up and then bows out around the edges, that plasma can't touch that water because that lake in the middle of that map I showed you, right? At the North Pole, that lake is pure, fresh, clean water with no particulates, no toxins, no nastiness inside of it. It's pure water. Electricity can't travel through pure water. It has to have a medium. Here's another example of Hermes, right? The thrice great. Many people in the modern age will call him the thrice great because of the three ages that he was referenced, being Mercury, Hermes, and then Thoth, right? I can see there's truth to that, but it's also he's just 3 in 1, which is the anode, cathode, and the neutral beam. This one's interesting too. Hermes, which means mountain from the water or mountain up out of the water. Like Moses this is the root from Moses is mesh or mis, means drawn from the water or pulled up out of the water, which is the story of Moses being, the savior that delivers the Hebrews. And then we got Thoth and all these other ones. Anyways, let's check out Hermes Trismegistus, right? Here's the rest of the drawing. This is a representation of him. This is the human, which is not the god, okay, in the skin, in the flesh. Here is what they saw. Here's the legs bowing out. The squatter man, the stick figure glyph up in the heavens, right? The toroidal field. All right, so Dark Helmet puts on his safari gear to blend in. And he's like, his buddy's like, can't you just use the Schwartz to take him from out from out of this hiding place or whatever. He's like, no, his Schwartz is more powerful than my Schwartz. You see, he got the upside, I got the downside. See, there's two sides to every Schwartz. And it's kind of like that's funny, because it's funny. But when you look at it and you analyze it, considering what we've talked about, right? Supposing that there's truth to that, this is true. This is why somebody asked me a really good question in the comments section, which is, why do I call this place paradise if it seems like it's also a place of great evil, right? The center of the world, Mount Meru, island, all that, right? Hyperborea. That's because it goes through electrical shifts. When that electricity, when that energy is good and positive, then that is paradise. For me, for people like me, that's damn paradise, right? If you're an evil person in this world right now, if you're an evil person during the time where Mount Meru and the energy is coming up out of it and it's all positive energy, that won't be a paradise to you. You don't want people to have telepathy and stuff because you want to trick people. You want to take advantage of them. You want to have power to yourself, etc. So it goes through it flip-flops between being a place that is the antenna of the world that puts out an evil signal, a bad signal, which is right now, and a place that puts out and emits a positive frequency. At least that's my theory on it so far. All right, so he uses the Schwartz. One of his powers that he can do is to manipulate what people see in their mind, what people physically actually see by manipulating the electrical waves in their brain. The bad side of the Schwartz can do that. So Dark Helmet turns into Prince Roland, King Roland, which is her father. She makes him see that, and then when she gets closer, she realizes it's actually Darth Helmet or Dark Helmet or whatever, right? So this is also like plasma possession. So whenever people become plasma possessed, the more hyped up amplified their energy gets, the more they will like be convinced of things. They'll see things that to them are completely justified, and oftentimes it leads to strong emotions, which oftentimes, when they're negatively charged people, lead to bad things happening. Anyways, so they come up on Druidia, they take their Spaceball 1 ship, and they open up the door. They have this code that they had to get to open up the door. And the door opens, and then their spaceship transforms into the Megamaid that has a vacuum. This is all just cartoonification of a reality. This is our world right here. This is the dome, and this is the depressurization point. And when the dome of the world opens, the atmosphere depressurizes. They flip it on. They turn on the vacuum, which a vacuum will turn on above our heads one day. And the depressurization point, well, actually, let me just explain this for those who are new. We have a physical dome of ice above our world. This is all from my perspective and research. Okay, so if there's a physical dome of ice above our world, there's also an electromagnetic field. Focus on the magnetic portion of that. That strong magnetic current presses in and repels various gases that are in our atmosphere and plasma, right? Which is why they have the auroras and stuff like that too. But it causes pressure, which makes weather in our world. And it pushes it in and pushes it in. That pressure builds up over time. And pretty soon that pressure gets to a point where if there wasn't that magnetic field holding it down, the pressure would be strong enough to be released to the apex of the dome and blow a hole out in the ice, in the dome itself, right? Which is what we see being represented here. When we go through the neutral point of that polarity shift, everything getting sucked up into this space vacuum. It's funny, it's interesting, but the reason it's so classic is because of the truths that it contains. The things that we know are true about this, that we can't explain, can't put our finger on it, but something about it just resonates. There's something there other than just it's so ridiculous that it's funny. You know what I mean? So they have the Megamaid sucking up all of the world's oxygen supply. He gets out his little ring of power with the S on it, right? The serpentine undulating S or whatever. And he uses his power of the Schwartz, which is telekinesis, focuses on the switch, and he moves the switch and turns it off or he reverses the flow. Now that's representative of polarity reversal as well. But also they say that Megamaid has gone from suck to blow. So even though that's a joke as well, it's also a reality, which is that Kronos, right? The god that opens up, the sky god that opens up its mouth and sucks its children, eats its children or whatever, right? The things that get sucked up won't continuously just be doing that forever. It'll only last for a short time and it'll reach equilibrium. Those things that don't get sucked up, they'll fall back down. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of other things that happen too. Gases that are created, things that are petrified up in the air, and then they all fall back down in strange places and stuff. Man, I forgot I was going with that. But anyways, the things that get sucked up will also come back down if they don't escape our world. Okay, they'll eventually fall back down, basically. Then the lights turn on. They all turn red. That's symbolic of the red sky, the color spectrum shift that we'll go into. Also, that's what black and white symbolism is too. I think I have that, actually. I'll talk about black and white in just a minute. All right, so we get this showdown between Lone Star and Dark Helmet. You can see Lone Star represents the survivors going into the good world, those who are peaceful and patient and meek and kind and things of that nature down in our hearts, right? That survive and make it into the next world. Our light is represented by the amber glow, the golden glow, the golden age, right? We enter into the red spectrum, right? The green light represents today and under the dark dome, basically under the dark city, during the night that we live in right now. That's the green light, the aurora borealis that we have up there right now. The light at the North Pole will change to a golden glow. It won't be green. At least I don't think it'll be green. So this is the golden age versus the present age, basically. Now, their ship is going to self-destruct. He totally wins that lightsaber battle. And he makes Darth Helmet smash his helmet into the self-destruct button. And this voice says, this ship will self-destruct in 10 seconds. And so they're all waiting and counting down. And then they escape and boom, their ship blows up. The head blows off of it. They take off in the Winnebago. They go back to planet Druidia. This is where King Roland lives. Check out this, right? Like I said, this is the old world technology. Also, you'll notice they built their home upon a rock. This is what many wise people in the ancient past did, was they built their castles, their monasteries, their cathedrals, their churches, or whatnot on rock, on bedrock, on any kind of rock that was solid and attached to the ground, so that the next time around they didn't get sucked up into the sky. You know what I mean? They may have been lucky the first time, or they may have been privy to information, but the wise built their houses upon solid ground, right? Just like as is spoken about Jesus when he shares that parable of the wise man building his house upon the rock, right? So anyways, they go in. And then so Lone Star takes off. He doesn't even want the money because he's not one of those merchant Druish people from Druidia, if you catch my drift. He's not one of those. He's not interested in money. It's nothing to him because money is just a physical outward form of currency, right? In a world that lacks currents, actual real electrical currents, they come up with these outer representations of things that they no longer have on the inside, right? Which is currency and power, basically. Technology as well. Technology is seen as like a god in the modern age. In the age to come, it will be the enemy. You won't need it at all. It'll be ridiculous that we ever even created technology because we'll be able to inherently do anything that we wish to do and will ourselves to do because we'll be so powerful. Like, energetically speaking, we'll be power filled. You know what I mean? Anyway, so they go into this diner and you can see the black and white checkerboard floor, right? So there's a couple of ideas that I have for the symbolism behind that. Traditionally, I've often taught that it represents, and I still believe that it represents fractal verse travelers, those who go out and they can see the whiteness and the brightness of space, if you want to call it space, right? Go out into the heavens, which is white and bright. And then the little domed worlds, the dark cities all over the place. There's probably infinite numbers of worlds that are just these little dark cities or whatever in between. So it looks like a checkerboard and stuff, right? So they play this cosmic chutes and ladders or cosmic chess or checkers or whatever. But then also it represents those who transition between the dark cities or the worlds that are dark and the worlds that are light. The worlds in their nighttime stage, which we are now, and the worlds that are in their daytime stage, which we're entering into. right? And it also represents black and white, actually seeing things in black and white, because we go through a color spectrum shift. Right now we've got diverse colors, but the time will come when the diverse colors of this world will also be reset, as will time, as will everything that you're used to, will be start back over at 0. And it'll have to all grow from there, including our color spectrum. So everything in the world to come will be monochrome for quite some time. And people who are born into that world, who've never seen red, I mean, they'll probably see red. Anyways, the people who have no idea what blue is, or green, or, you know, whatever, different colors, right? They won't have a concept of a color spectrum. They will see in black and white, or light and dark. They won't even know what to call the color that they do see, because that will just be what it is. You know what I mean? It'll be like living in a black and white world. Which is why you see so many movies that start off in black and white, and then they transition into a world of color, diverse colors and stuff, right? They're showing you this in the movies. Now these guys are in the background, and they're all kind of joking around. They're supposed to be like the crew from the movie Alien or whatnot, which also is super symbolic. And this guy's telling a joke, and he says, and then Harry began feeling around on all the trees. So the tree symbolism, right? This guy's feeling the trees. And then he said, I got it. We own Pluto, right? So he's trying to figure out where they were. And he's like, you're on Pluto. How do you know? And he says, how can you tell? How can you tell where we are? He says, from the bark, from the bark. So he's telling a joke about Pluto. But the joke was that he's talking about Pluto the dog, right? And then this guy over here, we'll come back to him. But he's telling a joke about Pluto the planet, and he equates it to Pluto the dog. And this is how the movie, to me, seems to be making fun of our cosmology and why it's the space balls. Like, balls being like a funny word to say, you know what I mean? Like base jokes and stuff. But we're presented with space balls. And they're clearly, to people, to me, okay, I'm just going to speak personally. I see through this garbage, this deception, okay? This is actually Pluto in the background. This is really what they say is an actual NASA photograph from the planet Pluto. And it's very clear to anyone who looks that it is the silhouette of the dog Pluto. Oh, hey, thanks for subscribing. Also, since I'm on that subject, this is a real still image from a video, allegedly, that was taken beyond the Earth on the other side of the moon. This is really supposed to be the actual moon passing in front of the Earth. People, I'm not convinced at all. I see right through all. This is not even real, like, to me. Okay, I can never believe this. I can never be duped by this. I can never be tricked by this. There's so many things that this doesn't make sense. There's so many questions that are not answered by these types of images that are shown to us by these space balls. Here's another one, right? In this one, they show you it's all like bent out at the edges. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but this is a real NASA image, an alleged real NASA image, not a real photograph from, you know, the other side of the dome or anything weird like that. But look at this. It's like the United States is like a fourth of the Earth. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm not here to, you know, really go over how ridiculous all of these are, but I just wanted to show you just a few obvious, glaringly obvious examples of the space balls, the space joke, as it's presented to us. I'm not convinced. I'm not getting tricked. This one right here says, come on, NASA, make up your mind. What does the Earth really look like? And they have all these different examples. This one clearly has like a cloud angel or whatever on it. This one's like the hazy Earth. This is like that blue marble deal. Look at the top. They put like a hole up there. There's another hole up there. I mean, if there's any, you know, truth to that, that's interesting. And then this one, they actually have like a serpentine cloud that goes all the way around the top up there. What else? Just weird. They all look completely different. They're different sizes. The continents are different sizes and stuff. Those are all messed up. This one's totally different colors, and you know, the clouds. A lot of the clouds are actually just copied and pasted. I mean, that's totally evident. If you look, you can find clouds that are from different years and stuff. Like they just copied and pasted the clouds. Here's another example. This is the India moon landing. Yay, India, we went to the moon. Right? No, you didn't. Neither did we. Nobody went to the moon, okay? Because we know what the real moon is, right? So this is supposed to be an image of the surface of the moon. Just take a look at it and let's compare it, right? We're going to show you the picture of Mars here in a minute. This is their alleged moon landing pictures. Now let's compare, they say in their Spaceballs model that they have, is that the moon's closer, right? And it's not too far away, and we've already been there. So it should be full of technology and stuff, right? But then we compare that with images that they allegedly take from Mars, which is like unfathomably far. Way further away, right? And you've got like HD winged Johnny Fives and freaking helicopters taking off with like full 4K video and stuff. None of this makes sense. This is all, to me, Spaceballs. Then this guy, he took the special, so his stomach's starting to hurt or whatever. And real quick, I just want to show you this Phantazoid pops out of his stomach. So this is also showing you like the truth of the otherworldly monsters that come in during these different shifts when the sky opens up, because the barriers that exist within the earth also open up, and there's animals and creatures and insects that are gigantic down inside of the earth, and they also come up. And some of these, the way that they lay their babies, like a camel spider. Okay, I don't know if you guys are familiar with a camel spider, but a camel spider will jump up underneath a camel, latch onto it, inject it with poison, and lay its babies in that thing so they can incubate in a living, warm body. Imagine that on a gigantic scale in the world to come, right? Phantazoids. Now they open up this bottle. They got liquid Schwartz. He's like, wow, liquid Schwartz, right? And the Schwartz is the power from Mount Meru, that beam that shoots up. And just like I talked about, it makes liquid. When we showed you Enki or Ya at the very beginning of the presentation, there's drops. There's liquid drops. There's viscous liquid drops that drop down onto the mountain that become mountain dew, dry out, and become frosted flakes. You know what I mean? And it's mana, basically. It's liquid. It's ambrosia. And it's energon. It's all these different things, and people can eat it, but they can also use it as fuel and energy because it's basically power. You know what I mean? So he puts this liquid Schwartz into the gas tank. The rest of the statue falls back onto some planet, and it exactly replicates the Planet of the Apes. I don't know if you guys have seen that one. We have not broke that one down yet. But it replicates the Planet of the Apes, and then these two ape people come up, and they're actually very sophisticated. So they represent the animals in the age to come, right? That we will have telepathy, and so will the animals, and we'll be able to speak. It's like the animals it'll be like living in a Disney movie. You'll be able to hear the animals, maybe not with your ears or whatever, but you'll be able to understand them, even if you never have before. You'll be able to communicate. You'll know their emotions, you'll know their characters, their personalities, and they'll know yours. So anyways, these monkeys come up and they start talking. They're very sophisticated sounding and stuff. And they're like, oh, good Lord, what is that coming out of their nose? And they show these guys like barely being able to climb down a rope, acting retarded and ridiculous, coming down from the Statue of Liberty. And he goes, Spaceballs? Oh, shit. There goes the planet. Right? So the Spaceballs, the idea is that the Spaceballs are going to now land on the Planet of the Apes, change their world, their cosmology and whatever, right? And turn the world upside down and make it all ridiculous as well. Lone Star finds out that he's a prince. So he gets to actually marry the woman who represents Sophia, the princess who was locked away, the blue beam, etc. And he also represents us, those who inherit the world to come, the survivors, right? The pure of heart, etc. So they get married, and he gets to live with her happily ever after. And then the movie ends by saying, may the Schwartz be with you. May the power be with you. May the Schwartz be with you. And that's Spaceballs. I had fun breaking this one down. And happy birthday to my channel. I'm extremely proud. I can't believe it's been 9 years already. Leave me some love in the comments section if you like, and I'll see you guys next time. Until then, I'm JayDreamerZ saying good vibes and goodbye.
Time to wake up, time to wake up. Decode.